Hey guys, welcome back to Donald Miller's Electrical Services. I'm Donald Miller. So there are ways to tell if you have a house that's been, I guess the better way to put it, if you've had handymen in your house working on the electric, or unlicensed electricians that are technically just hacks. They don't know how to do things correctly. And it's not just the connections, but it's how the wires are ran. It's how the wires are taken care of. So I'm going to go over a couple things with you in an attic today. And my suspicion started because the lack of cloth wires that I was seeing. I went around the attic. I didn't see any cloth wires at all. But as I opened up switches downstairs, I started finding cloth. The switch legs were all cloth wiring, but none was visible. So that clearly, so when you start seeing situations like that, you have to start thinking that they've been hiding the cloth wires from the inspector. Because the inspector is not going to open boxes up, okay? They're going to go in and they're just going to look around and they're going to kind of start looking to see if things were done right or wrong. But you can hide things from an inspector, and that's usually what I'm looking for, is things that are hidden. Things that they want to pass an inspection to sell the house, they want to pass an inspection, or they didn't pull permits at all, and then they start burying things. And a buried box is extremely difficult to find at times. Indications of a buried box are at the switch if it's cloth, but at the ceiling fixture it's Romex. Well, there's a box somewhere in between that they spliced onto. They might not have even used the box. They might just have an open splice in the wall or the ceiling, which is even worse. But as I start looking around, I want to show you things that I see personally, that I start kind of questioning the abilities of whoever worked on the house before. One is fishing a sewer stack. You can bring feeds from the basement up the sewer stack into the attic, okay, and then you can refeed the attic. And when you're doing a rewire, you bring a bunch of feeds up, and if you do it correctly, you don't have a lot of junction boxes. You start seeing a lot of junction boxes, and either the rewire was difficult or the people just didn't know how to rewire it correctly. So these are junction boxes I'm about to show you that are around the sewer stack, and I'm flipping the phone over here. All right, so here is one. Now I opened these, but if you notice the wires, see that kind of Romex connector, or I'm sorry, a staple. Like, they're used, but not often. Most electricians, I'll show you the ones we use. We use just a standard metal staple, but even that, okay? So when you start seeing the wires and you see, like, I try to straighten them up a little bit, but see how they're kind of all over the place, okay? It's just, when you start doing work and it starts getting messy, sometimes messiness is either due to the impatience of the contractor, or they don't know how to correctly mount your wires onto the studs. So these Romex connectors, that's the connector that connects the Romex wire to the metal box. They were loose, okay? The ground is not properly done, okay? There's no nut on the ground either. They're just twisted together in there. Another problem in here is you have a 12 wire linked into a 14 gauge wire, which is illegal. All right, so we have that issue. Another box not grounded. You can actually tell by the wire nuts too. There's a difference in the wire nut from like a Home Depot or a home improvement store that handymen go to than a professional grade wire nut from a supply house. If I see a supply house wire nut, I know at least that I'm going to start thinking the guy was an electrician. But that's not always the case. It's just little signs that you start looking for and you start seeing. I want to bring you over to, this is what I found in the ceiling. I thought they were connected. They're not connected. It's just trash. But I guess the guy didn't even feel like cleaning himself up. And as I went over into the attic, I started seeing this kind of stuff under the floorboards, okay? Now, it's not hooked up. It's just laying there, but the guy didn't pick up his trash, his wires. as you can see, this is actually active, and you see how it's just kind of thrown in there. It's not, I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm just saying it's messy, and it raises my suspicions of the guy's capabilities. So I want to go over here. All right. Now this was under this plank. See this plank here? This was underneath. And there's that 12 gauge wire, that yellow wire, okay? It's connected to a 14 gauge and then the cloth wiring. And this is one of those cloth, so this was hidden. But what's more alarming is, now this is hot, so I don't want to blow it up, but the grounds aren't really twisted together, like they're just kind of thrown in there. So wherever that 12 gauge wire is going, it's not really a ground. So you have an ungrounded 20 amp new outlet that might test correct. Like you put a tester on, I bet you that ground will read a ground, but it's not technically a secured ground. All right, so you got to kind of worry about this kind of stuff. Now, I have now, without finding any cloth wiring except for within the switches, I'm starting to see a lot now as I move floorboards around. As I move things around and inspector won't move around, I'm starting to find more. I found a knob and tube, single conductor knob and tube, and this house was built after 1930. This house was built, I think, 1934. Single conductor was getting phased out at that time. It still was used a little bit, but they went with a non-metallic sheathed cable, which was a cloth cable with cloth strings and the cloth conductors. They were zebra striped often. I actually might have one here to show you. That's a little bit like it. It's kind of, you see the striping on it. But just wanted to kind of talk to you about when we go into a house and we're looking for indications of, I don't want to say just hack electric, but indications of shortcuts. If I start seeing shortcuts, what else are they gonna shortcut? What else are they not gonna do? I know people are technically allowed to stab into the back of an outlet. I don't believe they're safe. You know, I would rather wrap the screw in a clockwise motion and tighten it down with a large flathead. That kind of gives you a better bond to the switch or the outlet. So yeah, I'm not a stabber. I definitely don't like stabbing into the back of devices. Another indication is this cloth wiring. When you start opening up your house and you start replacing the light fixtures or the outlets, and if your cloth wiring, where you see it separates and it goes to copper, if your copper's all nicked up and twisted and there's markings on it, it got butchered. Your copper should be clean. It should wrap around it. There might be a little nick or two, like little tiny imperfections, but it shouldn't be mangled. You shouldn't see claw marks all over it. It should be nice and straight and smooth. You start seeing copper where it's all beat up, it just, someone's not taking care. Either a handyman doesn't know what they're doing, or a lot of times what people will do, will take the wire off the device, but they won't clean the wire up. They'll just put it right back on the device. Well, if the wire's damaged or beat up and you start putting amperage on it, it's more likely to get stressed out and crack or break. Okay, more break. It doesn't really crack. It'll break. The moment you touch it, sometimes they just snap right off because the amount of amps that was on it, and they were so nicked up that thing just got heated up and beat up. And the moment you go over to it and you move it, it just breaks right off. And that gets a little scary at times. But I'm always trying to help the homeowner out. I want the homeowner to realize what electricity he has. So if it's safe, that's great. You have a safe house, sleep well at night. But if there are imperfections, or you start seeing indications that someone has been in your home that shouldn't be in your home, you need to find an electrician that you can trust. Have him go through it. Not everyone out there is all about making money. I know there's a lot of companies that are all about just the profit. I'm a tradesman. I'm never going to have a big company. I enjoy doing what I do. if I hire another tradesman, I need to make sure he's performing the same quality I'm doing. And the business practice of today's environment isn't really like that. I'm not saying there aren't companies out there that are good. There are very good companies out there, and there are very good electricians out there. But the business model out there today, you should be suspicious of. You should just kind of don't have blind faith in someone that comes to your home that you think is an electrician. In the state of Pennsylvania, the person showing up to your door doesn't really have to be licensed. Okay, I went over this before. A true license is an ICC certification. That's a 5-hour test. It's 100 questions, and it's hard. Okay, it's not an easy test. You really need to know your stuff when you go take that test. But in residential electric, they can send a guy out to your home that isn't licensed at all. The only person licensed is probably the business owner that's in the office. But with all his years experience, he's not at your house. You know, the guy that is at your house is who's working on your house. That's who's inspecting your electric. That's who's twisting those screws. That's who's making that's the person that you need to rely on most for your safety. For the quality of your electric, it's not the big company. The big company will guarantee the guy coming out there and guarantee his work. But that's just insurance. You know, if something happens, like, what are they guaranteeing? Oh, we'll fix it. Okay, well, how about doing it correctly so it doesn't have to get fixed? How about doing it right the first time? Giving yourself quality work, not taking shortcuts, not doing the littlest amount of work for the most amount of money. How about we stop doing that? You know, because that's not exactly, as a tradesman, I can't do that. You know, I got to be honest about everything I do and tell the homeowner, let the homeowner make the decision whether he wants to rewire or whether he wants to reuse cloth conductors. I think it's more the homeowner's decision because it's his safety. It's not really up to the electrician. The electricians, I don't believe in taking shortcuts unless I'm told, listen, if there's a quicker way, you know, maybe, and if it's legal, I'll do it. But if it's illegal, yeah, I'm not going to do it. You're going to have to find another electrician to do that kind of crap. All right, well, thank you for watching. I'm going to continue posting things that